We're in good shape.
I think he took the stairs.
That's just showing off.
Yeah.
Senator, if you'd like to come forward. You're it on the agenda today.
Deja vu.
Yep, I know. Second verse, same as the first. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are here for the Juvenile Justice meeting. Legislative Council has indicated to me that there are some issues, some grammatical issues and stuff like that we need to change. So this is going to be a hearing only. For this bill, we are working from Senate Bill 168. It is LC 372261ER. So, Senator, if you'd like to present the bill.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair and members of the committee. Appreciate your indulgence this morning and being here on your day off, so to speak, to discuss this, and appreciate the subcommittee chair process. Specific to the bill, if we look at lines 22 and 23, if I could direct your attention there, you will see that this is initially, it allows DFACs to share historical child abuse information with licensed adoptions agencies, and the purpose is to allow adoption agencies to have access to additional and all information available about potential adoptive parents and make good decisions about the welfare of children. Further, if I could direct your attention to line 35, this cleans up a reference to the court-appointed special advocates, CASA, in this code, and they already have access. This was just a copying and an editing issue, if I'm not mistaken. And then further, if I could direct your attention additionally to page 3, lines 80 to 86. This allows DFACs the ability to share information with local, state law enforcement, Department of Community Supervision, Corrections, and Juvenile Justice. And of course, those entities are providing services and supervision to individuals and families that also are being served by DFACs. There's an exception for prohibitions on information sharing for federal law. There's also a provision that the information be shared electronically when funds are allocated for that purpose. And this increases the information sharing among agencies serving the same families stated in the welfare legislation earlier. Directing your attention further to lines 94 and 96. Specific to the registry, this adds other state, local, and federal entities that are investigating or responding to a report of child abuse, and to the list of entities that can access information.
Senator, would that include military police?
I would, being a non-lawyer, I would suspect so, but I would not know for certain.
Okay.
I mean, to be perfectly honest with you.
Ashley, would you know? It would include military? Should we not specify military in that, Scott? Do you have any? What number are you? One. There you go.
I don't think you need to make a separate carve out. I think it's pretty well understood that the military operates under federal jurisdiction.
Okay. All right. Sweet. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. And then, Madam Chair, excuse me.
It's all good. We're all friends here.
And then, of course, lines 121 and 126 adds other state and local federal entities for vetting potential foster parents and adoptive homes. And then lines 127 and 133 allows private child placing agencies and adoption agencies to check with Child Abuse Registry for the names of potential foster parents and adoptive parents, again, for the approval process and for adoptive homes. Of course, this piece of legislation comes from the Child Welfare Reform Commission that was enacted a couple years ago and brought forth sweeping changes. I think that as a rule that our child welfare.
So let me just interrupt, Senator. I just have a quick question on 27. A child placing agency of the state licensed to place children in foster homes, but then it adds in the discretion of the Division of Family and Children's Services. So are we or are we not allowing the child placing agency? access.
Well, I think the representative of DFACS might be, or the attorneys here might be able to better clarify that for us.
Okay. If you want to step to the podium, Ashley.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Can you direct me to the line that you're speaking to?
It begins on line 27 and continues on to line 30. 127, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I don't have my glasses on right now, so I do apologize for that.
This is specific to the out-of-state licensed agencies.
Mm-hmm.
If I could speak to that, one of the problems, this is a private entity,
Mm-hmm.
and when we release information to them and they're out of state, we have no way to police their use of it. So they could use it in any way not permitted by statute once we give it to them. So this is to allow the agency, if we see that going on, to intervene and try to do something to keep them, to keep the out-of-state entity to use the information in the way that's intended. Once we give it out of state, we have no way to.
So are you talking about, whenever you're talking about information, so if I request a background, we'll say on Scott, sorry, Representative Holcomb, but if I request a background on him, so are you talking about that specific file or just access to the database?
I'm talking about when I give, if you as an out-of-state adoption entity request information on him, then we would give you that. But once we give it to you, we have no way of requiring you to use it only for the purpose that's cited in the statute. If we find out that your adoption agency is sharing it when it's not permitted to share it, then we can try to use this as a lever to keep you using the information exactly as you're supposed to in our state statute.
And
Okay.
Chairman Ballinger, to clarify, Section 2 is specific to the Child Abuse Registry.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I was aware of that. I just, are we or are we not giving them access to that information? So, that was the question. Representative Quick, you have a question?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And this was not my original question, but to the point of what you're discussing with the chair lady at 127, this whole Section 7, I don't have any concerns about the policy of this measure, but it's really just a statutory construction and wording question. It appears that this definition does combine in-state and out-of-state, and that then when you use this parenthetical in the discretion of the Division of Family and Children's Services, it doesn't seem to have a place. It looks like that is somehow limiting everyone, not just the out-of-state applicant. And I'll just leave that there for Legislative Council to maybe talk about that later, but I share the concerns that have been expressed about those lines.
Yeah, because it does say of this state.
So, but my other question was about lines, lines 80 through 86. And it's a similar question regarding the inclusion of local and state law enforcement agencies of this state, and then all this other laundry list of departments that says when such entities or departments are providing supervision or services to individuals and families, but local and state law enforcement agencies would not be providing supervision or services to individual or families, correct? That's supposed to modify the departments only? That phrase is modifying the departments only?
That's correct. Representative Quick, I'm going to defer to Ms. Egan on this issue, but I do believe that that is modifying the departments.
It is. It also can be read to be modifying the local or state law enforcement entities. That's to cover local probation. When those folks are working with our families, we want to be able to share information with them so that we can work together to address the family issues. We already can provide local and law enforcement entities our information when they're investigating child abuse and neglect. That's provided for in another section. So this is to let us further, when they're not investigating, but when they're working with families on child abuse issues, this is to allow us to share information with them.
And you see that would be probation services in connection with this part of the definition?
That's how I'm viewing that.
Because I don't think that's clear in that. I know legislative council had a concern about that as well, so, I think maybe there's some clarification. Representative Quick, did you have any?
Just one other, Madam Chair,
Sure.
if I might,
Sure.
if you'll just indulge me. The last sentence of that same section, lines 85 and 86, access to such records and information may be provided electronically. How would that work, and how would that database, who would set that up, and then who would have access to it, and how much money will that eventually cost?
Yes, ma'am. This is sort of an end goal for the division to be able to provide real-time information in the event that, say, we are able to make adjustments to Shines to get to this point. We will need budget allocations for it, but what we would like to do in the end game is to have a law enforcement officer get called out to a home, and once they pull in that driveway, they get an alert that DFACS also has an active child welfare investigation in this home.
All right. Representative Cantrell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Last year, we passed a bill specifically related to the confidentiality of the forensic interviews of the alleged victims. When it says records and information, is the forensic interview included in that, or is this strictly written information?
This is specific. Section 2 would be specific to whether or not an individual is or is not on the child abuse registry.
Okay,
Section
so
1,
it's limited to that.
yes, in Section 2. Section
Okay.
1 would be whether or not we have a previous substantiation of maltreatment.
Okay.
The issue we run into is the child abuse registry started on July 1, 2016, so it only includes substantiations from that day forward.
Gotcha.
However, we believe it's important for those people who are investigating child abuse or vetting foster and adoptive homes to know if there was previous involvement before that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Representative Cantrell. Oh, I'm trying to turn you off. Thank you. Okay. So, are there any other questions from the committee? I understand Legislative Council had a couple of editorial changes, and I think we have some questions and concerns about some of the language. So the posture of the bill is this. I think I'm going to work with Legislative Council to come up with a committee sub. Since you've walked us through it, hopefully we'll be able to get this out in the beginning of next week. I understand time is kind of the essence. And certainly Representative Dempsey will be more than qualified to come and present the bill on your behalf. But we're going to work with Legislative Council to clean up some of those issues. We'll partner obviously with DFACS and get some of those clarifications made so that we can move forward with a clean bill with the committee sub. Okay?
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Senator. We are adjourned.